look at an old photo long enough, and you will notice something odd happening. Your eye drifts away from the person it was actually taken for. You start looking at the car parked in the driveway behind them, the television in the corner, huge, boxy, yeah, in a way nobody questioned at the time. Wallpaper that hasn't existed in decades. Somebody standing at the edge of the frame who wasn't even part of the moment, just caught there, mid conversation, completely unaware they were about to become part of someone's memory 40 years later. Nobody was thinking about any of that when the photo was taken. It was just what the room looked like, just Tuesday. I think that's what's interesting about it. We assume history is made of the big things, the events, the dates, the moments everyone agreed in advance were worth remembering. But most of the history any of us actually carries is quieter than that. It's a bakery that isn't there anymore. A street that felt enormous when you were 7 and turns out to be barely a block long. A neighbor who somehow knew everything happening on the street before anyone else did, and you never once thought to ask how. None of it felt like anything at the time. It was just the shape of an ordinary life. And maybe that's exactly why it's so hard to notice while you're still inside it. Normal doesn't announce itself. It just sits there, being normal, until it isn't anymore. Think about something as small as buying groceries. Years ago, you weren't wondering whether the day you'd scan your own shopping would arrive or pay with your phone instead of your wallet. You were just trying to remember whether you already had milk at home. That's usually how change works. It doesn't arrive all at once. A shop closes, a habit disappears without anyone deciding to end it. A familiar place gets replaced by something else. And you adjust so gradually you don't notice the adjusting. Then one day you look up and the world feels different. Not because of one large thing, but because of hundreds of small ones that happened while you were busy living your life. I think that's really what people mean when they say, "Where did time go?" They're not only talking about the years, they're talking about everything that shifted underneath them while their attention was somewhere else. It happens to a house the same way. You live somewhere long enough and you You stop registering the small changes. Furniture gets moved, a room gets repainted, a tree in the yard grows taller or disappears in a storm. You were there for each change, so none of them felt like much on their own. Then someone who hasn't visited in years walks through the door and says, "This place looks completely different." And you're almost surprised, because to you, it doesn't. You watched it happen one piece at a time. I think we do the same thing to ourselves. We don't notice ourselves changing because we're standing too close to it. I remember thinking as a kid that adults had always simply been adults. That my teachers were born looking exactly like that. People in their 40s seemed impossibly old. And then one day, you're older than the people you once thought of that way. And there was no ceremony for it, no single morning where it happened. Life just kept moving, and you kept moving with it. That's maybe why an old photograph carries more than it looks like it should. It's not really showing you a younger version of somebody. It's showing you a moment nobody thought to protect. Someone making lunch, a couple of kids in the backyard, a family around the table on an afternoon that felt like nothing in particular. Nobody in that photo was thinking, this is something I'll want back one day. They were just getting through an ordinary afternoon. And yet it's often exactly those afternoons, not the milestones, not the big trips, that you trade almost anything to sit inside again for 10 minutes. Not because they were perfect, just because they belong to a version of the world that doesn't exist anymore. I think a lot of us spend our lives waiting for the moment we assume will matter. The holiday, the achievements, the thing we've been working toward. There's nothing wrong with looking forward to those. But often, while we're busy waiting for life to become memorable, it's already becoming exactly that in the background without asking our permission. The routine you're tired of right now might be the thing you miss most in 20 years. The conversation you thought was forgettable, the street you walk without looking at anymore, the people who are still, right now, just a phone call away. History doesn't only live in museums. For most of us, it's built out of the ordinary stuff. A kitchen table, a street corner, a photograph nobody thought was important when the shutter went off. We never recognize it while it's happening. It's just life doing what life does. It's only later, looking at the edge of an old photo instead of the person it was meant for, that you realize it had already become something worth keeping. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next video.